important webinar for the month of October. With me today, I want to thank the speakers of this webinar today. They will introduce themselves, and so you can appreciate the wealth of experience that you're going to be learning from. But I wish to thank all of them for making time and prepare particularly to join this October webinar at the Free High Impact Leadership Institute. Today's webinar is going to be on value-based leadership, and we're going to learn from their experience, why is it important at digital age, particularly for every leader to uphold values. Let's begin with introduction. May I first invite Professor Mutongu, our main speaker, to introduce himself and tell us where he is before I call upon the other panelists. Karibu.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I can't hear them because they are muted, but it's okay. My name is Reverend Dr. Zabron Vudi Mutongu from Kenya, speaking now in a place near Nairobi called Two Rivers City, the newest city in Kenya. My background is I don't want to go to the whole background because it's a long history, but I'm an ordained minister, trained up to the highest level. I'm a trained agriculturist. I am a community development trained person, and I'm also trained in leadership, governance, and management at the highest level, with a PhD in organization development. That's my expertise area. And I have been working in different institutions. I've worked in church-related organizations, being academic dean of a college, which is the biggest Anglican college in Kenya. I have worked as a training director for the Diocese of Mount Kenya South. I have also been a director of an institute there. Going to the university, I have worked as a lecturer, senior lecturer, practical coordinator of the university, head of the department for the Faculty of Theology. I have also worked as the director of the Institute of Lifelong Learning. I have also been a founding director.
That's very long. Very long.
The last one,
one question for you. What are you doing now? What are you doing now?
Currently, I am working as a consultant and partly working with Buchari Institute as a facilitator. Thank you.
Should I give the people your email if they ask for your email?
My email?
Yes, if they ask, should I give you your email?
Yes, please. Because
you're a consultant.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you. Can I go to South Africa? Temba Lengani. Now, forgive me again.
You're forgiven, Doctor. Yeah, you're forgiven. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists. Thank you once again for the opportunity to join this esteemed group of individuals, learners, academics, professionals in the continent. My background is not as long as Dr. Mutonga, so mine is very short. I'm currently based in South Africa, born and bred in South Africa. I run a reputation management firm called Hlengane Associates, and I work with a global company called Fin Partners. We assist companies with challenges when it comes to media, when it comes to stakeholder engagement, when it comes to broad reputation, government relations. We work with both global and domestic companies in South Africa. My background is in the 26 years of my working life. I started as a journalist in South Africa. I worked for a number of companies, national print, radio, television, including the South African National Broadcasting Corporation, where I was head of their economics desk, and both for both TV and radio. But in the last few years, I've focused more on advising clients on how to handle the media, how to handle government, how to position themselves, both from a leadership point of view, either as a leadership as a company or leadership as individuals. So I do quite a number of what we call executive coaching for CEOs, boards, advising them on how to handle crisis upon crisis. I've spent half of my day today dealing with a crisis in one of my key clients, which is a big financial authority company organization in South Africa, which has a crisis at the moment. So I advise on crisis and what are the key traits that organizations or leaders should have to be able to survive a crisis and have recouped.
We are in many aspects of the crisis now in the Africa continent.
Yes,
with
we
the
are.
That we have, with the dates that we have, with the climate change issues. We'll come back to you. But I'm very much interested in executive coaching. I'm sure there are people who needs that, maybe including me. We might be your customer in the near future. Can I invite Dr. Florence Tem, please, for an introduction?
My name correctly, the R starts before L. So Florence, I saw the advert there. So actually, I'm a medical doctor by training. That's my background in medicine, and have done public health and a number of other trainings, including palliative care, geriatrics, and many other leadership courses. Currently, I'm the country director for AMREF Health Africa in Tanzania. For those who know, AMREF is an African-based organization. I think it's one of the prominent or locally originated in Africa, led by Africa, so it's fully led by locals. So I sit in a number of boards, and given the role that I do as a country director, now say maybe this is my, in total, maybe I've done 11 years, yeah, as a country director, but before that I've been a deputy country director. So I've done that job here in Tanzania, but also in Ethiopia. And I sit in a number of boards, including AMREF Health Africa in Canada. I'm a board member there, but even here in some corporates. So as I sit in the boards doing the leadership, that's how I learn a number of things. But I've undergone also training by the Institute of Directors of Tanzania to the level of mastery. So that's me in the nutshell. I don't have to go to a long list like my predecessor. So thank you.
We'll be learning a lot. AMREF is probably one of the biggest organizations in Africa and so in Tanzania. And I'm sure we're going to be learning a lot from you, how to manage the values as a country director in a very competitive environment. Dr. Mteule Nkomo, this is your turn now.
Thank you so much, and appreciate my colleagues that have joined us. Mine is probably the shortest, and I've been speaking through it for 2 minutes. So I started back in days with my initial career. I was trained as an auditor. So I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers for about 5-7 years, and I did audit with sector organization. Then before I moved to donor-funded projects, space. I worked with mainly USAID funded projects, worked with PACT, moved to Deloitte consulting firm, but somebody needs to mute the computer. And then later on, I moved to the United States of America, where I went for a work study program, and I did both my MBA, my doctorate in business. And later on, I moved, well, before I moved back to my country, I worked for 3 years in another donor-funded project in California. And this was specifically funded by both the federal government of the United States and the state of California. And then in 2018, I moved back to my country in Tanzania, and then I joined JAPIGO, where I'm working currently as the director of grants, contracts, and strategic partnerships. And I'm coordinating all the partnerships, grants for all the funds that we receive as a path through to the government and private sector and CSOs. Thank you.
Very good, very good. So I want to just start saying that we have a blend of experience and background, so ranging from a pastor, organization development, into a journalist, into medicine, into audit and finance, is a blend of mixture of experience that I think we are going to have a good time learning today. Let me start by introducing the session before the main speaker comes. Leadership is very important. And today we're discussing about values, value-based leadership. In Bujali High Impact Leadership Institute, we define leaders, not the person who is elected, but leadership from the personal level, meaning at the micro level. We do define that every person is a leader. So all of you here in this session, and those who have not had the time to participate, they are leaders by themselves. And so for this world to succeed, we need to begin building leadership at individual level. And once we appreciate that leadership is at individual level, before you lead others, you're gonna first lead yourself. Then once we appreciate that, we're able to now begin leading others because we have been able to lead ourselves in the best way. Today, we're talking about value-based leadership. And Professor Mtongu is going to be our main speaker today. Support team, please allow Professor Mtongu to share the screen so that he can share some insights and tools. We do expect in this session as current and future leaders that you learn the insights and tools to be able to be a better you, to be a better leader. Professor Mtongu, it is now your turn. I have the honor to welcome you to the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Jonas will allow me to share. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, then my professor the other day taught me to go to slide
show.
slide show. And this one is refusing to give me the access here, but just a minute. Slide control.
So on the header, you are on the home, go skip insert, and then move forward. After animation, you have slideshow. If I can see correctly.
I have slide control. Where did you see it?
On the header, you are at home.
Yes.
So go forward, insert. Skip insert, yes.
Here?
Slide. Yes, please.
Or then from current.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I think that's okay now. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes, I am able to share now. So thank you, members, for this, and thank you, Dr. Bujari, for the opportunity. The panelists, thank you so much for joining us for us to discuss this session. Like Dr. Bujari said, leadership is at the level of the person. It is not the position one holds, but the person himself is where leadership starts, whether a student, whether a clergy, or whether a worker in any position, whether you are teaching in class, that's your level of leadership. So thinking about value-based leadership is one of the most controversial aspects of leadership in this world because it is argued that there is no value leadership which is unchallenged. But looking at what it is here, value-based leadership is a leadership philosophy that enables us to create and lead values-driven organizations that are energized, equipped, and organized to achieve their goals. So thinking of yourself as a leader, then you see yourself in line with the energy that you use to work in your organization, and you also see yourself in line with the goals of that organization. So the first question you ask yourself is, are you aligned with the values of your organization? Or are your values aligned with the values of your organization? So the values-based leadership philosophy focuses on who we are and how we behave than what position of power we hold. And I think my experience with interacting with leaders is that most people focus on the position of power they hold, other than they themselves and the philosophy that they are working through. So most of the people will say, I am the boss here. You should know that I'm the boss. So when you look at the value-based leadership in that context, then it may not be there. And my question always will be, who does not know you are the boss? So why are you telling us? We all know that you are the boss. So why should you tell us? Then true leadership is about earning authority through our example and actions so that people choose to follow us. You can never force people to follow you, however strong you are as a leader. What makes people to follow you is the authority created through model leadership, which is based on your values as a leader. If you try to force people to follow you, you create fear. You don't create followers. So people will be doing what you say, but when you are not there, they do what their values allow them to do. So leadership is not about position of power or the ability to make people do our will. Nobody will do our will because people have their values, whether Christian, Muslim, or whatever background they come from, they have their values and their will that guide what they want to do in that organization. And as Peter Drucker puts it, if you think you are a leader and no one is following you, you are just taking a walk. So you are not a leader because you have nobody following you. You are alone taking a walk. That's according to Peter Drucker. I picked these few characteristics of leadership from one of the writers, and they guide us in a way that says a strong desire to do right, to do the best, and to treat others as they would like to be treated. That's also a biblical principle. Treat others as you would like them to treat you. Values are not imposed, rather selected. We select the values we want to follow. we are never forced into values. Values-based leaders have critically examined these values and made a conscious decision to live by them. So values guide leaders in a way of living that feels good and right after the fact. So values-based leaders expect good consequences if they embrace and live these values, and bad consequences if they reject and don't follow them. And that's very critical, because not everybody will buy your values. Not everybody will be willing to walk with you in your value journey. Some others would want to derail you. They would want you to buy their values, some of which may not be anywhere closer to the best practiced values. So all this will help leaders to do their best and to be their best. Coming back to our today's topic, value-based leadership is a leadership philosophy that enables us to create and lead values-driven organizations that are energized, equipped, and organized. I've already introduced that. So when we think about value-based leadership philosophy, then we are talking about leadership that focuses on who we are and how we behave, rather than the position of power, what I had said earlier on. Then true leadership is about earning authority through our example and actions, so that people choose to follow us. We don't tell them to follow us. They choose to follow us. So leadership is not about positional power. It is about the ability to make people do, and not the ability to make people to do our will. So in that case, then organizations live, die by their leadership. If a leader is not value-based, he'll lead the organization to its deathbed. And I have no apology saying that, because I have seen many leaders who come and they want to convert a very well-founded organization, which is value-based, into a freelance, which now makes the organization to desert its values. So it's the leader's effectiveness in creating vision for a preferred future and establishing an appropriate values-driven culture that determines the organizational results. Results are not just achieved, they are created. And the best way to create these results is through values-driven culture. I'll be talking a little more about culture in a few minutes. Leaders and their organizations can best execute their mission and achieve superior results by first addressing the foundation of behavior and performance. And there we talk about personal and shared values. Not just personal, but both personal and shared values. Because your values, if not shared, will not achieve anything. The shared values, if not owned, will not achieve anything. Then values determine behavior, and behavior determine performance. So value-based leaders effectively engage, motivate, and develop their followers, establishing a culture that enables transformational, sustainable change. That's very important. Enabling transformational, sustainable change, resulting in effective execution, innovation, and outstanding performance. Without values, you cannot achieve that.
Professor Mtongu, you have 5 minutes time.
Okay, let me try to catch up, but allow me to put on light, just 1 second. Thank you. I think now it's more clearer. Value-based leaders create and lead values-driven companies. I think this is very important for young leaders who are upcoming, that if you want to create and lead value-driven companies, then you must be value-based. And that will give you the energy, because you will always be seeing the values that you have inculcated being extended in that organization, equipped and organized to achieve powerful goals. So that will also be reflected in the customers that you are interacting with, the suppliers, the shareholders, without focus on personal gain. So the problem that kills organizations is when people lose values and they start focusing on personal gain other than the values they use to help their organizations to develop and grow and become sustainable. So it is creating a value for the sake of the organization and its mission for the sake of society as a whole. It's not about the person. When leaders embrace value-based leadership, it is then they start realizing personal fulfillment and lasting significance. So it is through this selfless pursuit of worthy goals that individuals, leaders, will attain legacy and lasting impact. I think if we had the time, I would give you a background of what I mean by that, but probably in the discussion session, we can still look at that. So that may sound like an ideal situation, a dream in the sky, but it is the real foundation for true leadership. Value-based leadership is the true foundation of leadership. Based on values determine behavior, and behavior determine performance. Without values, performance will be very low because commitment levels go down. And you cannot convince me that without values, you can be able to perform at the maximum level. So looking at it, look at it, a value like integrity. How does it help us? It leads to the belief that being honest and authentic is important and makes a positive difference in working with others. And I can tell you, this value has made me to lose a job once or twice. I can tell you.
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that example.
Yes.
Sharing practical experience. But I wanted to quickly summarize. Josiah, can you please switch off your camera? It's kind of distracting. So Professor Mtongu says value-based leadership are the foundation of the leadership. And then he says the values, they lead to behavior. And then the behavior leads to performance. So I want to emphasize this point because this is where he ends, and these are very important. Values are the foundation, true foundation of leadership. And the values create behavior, and behavior improves performance. And then the other bit, before I call a discussant to come in, Professor says that the leadership you have to earn, so which means you have to do something that people believes in what you are doing. And I want to agree with you as I quote from Richard Barrett, one of the scholars in leadership. He says, the value-based leadership is a way of making authentic decisions that build trust, but also commitment. With that, I wish to go to my panelists, and I will first start with Dr. Florence Tem. I will start with Dr. Florence Tem. From your experience, why are values so important, particularly in this 21st century, particularly in the digital age, with your long experience in managing and heading the organization? Why are values important for somebody who is aspiring to be the new country director for AMREF when you become the regional director? I don't.
Okay, Bujeri, can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Okay,
Yes,
looks like
go ahead.
Bujeri is kind of stuck.
I think he's
So-
having some internet challenge.
Okay, so
think
can
she
you
has
hear me
some-
now?
Yes, you are ahead.
It's Bujeri, I'm checking the chair. So Bujeri, if I can just respond to what we just asked, this very interesting question. Actually, as the professor just said, actually value begins with the individual. And I'll say it's how you want to be defined or to be reflected. How do you command? To me, value is basically your conduct and how you want to be reflected at all seasons. So what is your value when you are happy? What's your value when there's stress? How do you behave when somebody really, when you're in a very difficult situation? And how stable are you? So, and also in controversial situations. And when you're a leader, in such situation, you're supposed actually to behave in a manner that you reflect the value of that organization. I know we've gone through a number of controversies with different culture. There's some Western culture that can be brought within our context. Sometimes with the digital world, there's a lot that comes out with it. And at the same time, where we are leading young people, Generation Z, I can say, which are quick. They want things to happen very quickly. And at the same time, we have to make them ethical and have to remain compliant to the regulations and what is expected of you. But at the same time, we want to sustain and make the organization remain relevant. So there are people who will be looking at you, the beneficiaries, the context that you're leading, and say the government, donors, other partners, and have to justify why should be that organization? Why should it be AMREF in this case? So I think as a leader, you have to present that value that you speak of your own organization. So if you're saying we are maintaining integrity, quality, and that's what AMREF we talk about, or maintaining Ubuntu means that you are because I am. I think this my colleague, my friend from South Africa, it's basically you have to show it practically. And they will say you have to be conscious, to be mindful, should be conscious of what you're supposed to do, not like, oh, it just happened. I mean, ideally, should make repeated reflections of what kind of a leader you want to become and what kind of organization you want to compose. And this has to be repetitively communicated without getting exhausted, because sometimes if you're short-tempered, you say it once and want to repeat it and think people are just doing it purposely. But human beings have got a very complex internet within their brains, and you cannot be the same. We differ. And each time people are faced with different factors around. So you never know each time X yourself, where are you, or the people you're talking to. So there's what we call emotional intelligence. You have to embrace that in the cause of presenting your own values and preserving your own values so that you don't tarnish it the way you want it to become. So I'll stop there unless you have a follow-on question to that. I hope I've answered you. Thank you.
I will certainly come back. I'll certainly come back to you. You're mentioning very important points, I think. So how do you want people to know you in different spectrum of circumstances? And how do you control that? And if it's an organization, how do you want people to know from the outside? And I think we are agreeing that value is about what people sees you, what people see in you, and not what you communicate. Sometimes people may perceive a different situation than the way that you're communicating. Some people say lip services, but I think.
Yeah, basically it's what they say, walk the talk. It's not like you do what I say and I don't do it because I'm a leader. Or and also there's I want to differentiate between value-based kind of leadership and power-based leadership. Power-based is because I'm actually here. This is my title, have to respect. And in actual fact, that won't last, and they won't get a lot of cooperation because people will be looking at your powers more than actually what you're saying. But in a value-based, you make it be realistic. People have to be engaged, involve people, let them digest. And in this world where we're dealing with health issues, there's a lot of technical issues, etc. And also things keep changing. The world is changing. Your old school may not be necessarily the current school. Your old experience may not necessarily be the current. Wherever you came from may not necessarily apply now. So you should allow those minds. At the same time, those years back, and like 4 decades back, the literacy rate globally was less than 60%. But now the literacy rate is above 80, 90%. Many people are learned. You are leading people who are knowledgeable. It's not like they are empty boxes. They are people who know what they want to do. How best do you manage intelligent people? How best do we deal with the complexity in the health, the changing trend in the health sector? I'm saying health because that's where I am. But there are a lot of other things coming up, the climate change, etc., business world. How do you navigate around that and yet remain? So we have to use these people. So these people are very variable. You have to use them, engage them, and gain from them and exchange. So basically, value-based leadership is to put value into people as well, not necessarily what to do, and the actions will speak by themselves than the words.
I got your first word, walk the talk. So don't just say, instead of doing it, you want others to do, but you don't do it. So this is very important. Walk the talk. We'll probably be coming back to you with some time. Themba, your reputation management in your company, how do you link reputation management and upholding and helping people to uphold values as they want to excel in their own profession, but also in their own company? What would you share with the audience today?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Let me start by saying that, reputation and leadership go hand in hand. Reputation and values go hand in hand even better, because you want to build your reputation either as a business or as an individual based on certain values that people can align themselves to you. Let's call it the stars. The stars, they form a line because they know each other's behavior, characteristics, and they know that they have to form a line. And that's the same thing with reputation and leadership. If the values are very clear to everyone that you lead, it becomes very easy for people to align with you. And I wanted to also quote some people, but the person who really comes to mind now is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, we all know him, one of the richest person in the world. He valued his reputation very much because he once said, if you can build reputation over 20 years but destroy it in 5 minutes. What he was trying to say really is that what will build you, build your business, build people that will support you as a leader are the values that actually you have put in front of you. People are attracted to values than to names. I can arrive at an organization as Themba, but if I don't have values that will attract people who will form part of my team, as a leader, then I'm just walking alone. I'm no longer leading anyone. So from a reputation point of view as well, it is quite important that reputation is built on values. Someone's reputation, a company reputation is built on values. There are companies that we know that will say, we don't sell this kind of items in our food products based on their value. And that actually has grown them the following that they have. They become leaders in their own industries because of those values, you know, and their leaderships in terms of individual leaderships also are revered in most sectors. Why? Because people value the values that they follow and the values that they build on a daily basis. So it's quite important that actually as leaders, we look at ourselves to say, are we building our leadership style based on very good values or on values that actually are discredited? So once your values are discredited, no one wants to touch you. And then you will just be walking alone, not leading anyone. I think very good points have already been mentioned, but I wanted to just also touch on 2 or 3 things that I've seen in my few years of working with leaders. Leaders with very strong values usually leads to their organization and will usually have what we call improved communication channels and levels, because people are very clear about what we're working towards, because the values are aligned between the leadership, the management, and the people that are supposed to be supporting them, that is their staff. Because of that, you find that even the organization is moving further and further because there's this constant communication that is aligned around the values. So I've seen those characters in organization where the values that the leaders are ascribing to in terms of organization and themselves, which with the alignment of the staff, you find that there's constant flow of information within the organization, which helps with productivity. I think Prof. Mutonga as well mentioned something around productivity, you know, when there's alignment. So that is one of the most important things that personally I've seen in organizations that I work with, where the values are very clear, very strong. Everyone is working their values. You find that there's a very clear communication lines, and improved communication usually leads to better outcomes. Let me also mention the improved decision making. You know, when the values are clear in an organization, when the leaders are people know, can't second guess what values they follow, or whether the value changes on a week-to-week basis, you know, it helps the organization move forward because the decision making process is quite clear. It is based on specific, and that is what actually in most cases where I see progressive companies, it's where there is this alignment between staff, leadership, and management on values. You see the decision making is quicker and people are not second guessing each other. Okay, I thought you wanted me to stop there.
You're getting lost. So I was not hearing you. I was not hearing you.
Okay.
But thank you. We may come back again to you. Let me go to Mtole Nkomo. Thank you, Temba from South Africa. Let me go to Mteule. Mteule, so Temba says reputation is built on values. And Dr. Florence tells us that, you know, we're managing people, young people, they want things to be done quickly, but we have to uphold the values and be compliant also. Dr. Mteule, what would you tell the future leaders, young people, they are here, I can see some of them that I know. What would you tell young people, particularly on reputation is built on values, from your own experience?
Thank you so much, Dr. I appreciate the previous speakers. And I think mine is very easy and short because I'm building on, you know, all the other speakers. It should be very straightforward. So I think reputation, we mentioned about it in our previous discussion, and we say reputation
Is it my internet?
No, I think it's
no, we have lost him.
Yeah. So he will surely come back very soon, I'm sure. So my question to him is, what will he tell the future leaders, the young people who are here, in terms of reputation is built on values, importance of upholding values as we develop your own reputation. Professor Mtongu, before as he probably connects, would you want to comment on that?
Yes, I thank you. That's a very, very, very good question for the upcoming leaders, because one of the things I have observed with the upcoming leaders.
Dr. Mteule, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you in a while. Professor Mtongu, for that.
Yes, one of the things I have observed is that young leaders do not want to face the facts as they are. When they are threatened, they withdraw from their values. And I know many leaders are very good at threatening young people not to come up and stand up with their values. So my advice to them would be, if you have taken a job and it requires you to uphold your value to the last dot. And last week I had a discussion with a very young leader who was given a job, and that person told me, I worked, and after 5 years, somebody wanted to take advantage of me. I was to be promoted, but be sharing my salary with my boss. And the position was very lucrative. But the person said, I don't want to say a lady or a young man. The person said, you can stay with your promotion. I'm comfortable working where I am. And I think that's what Dr. Florence said, that we want things to happen so quickly. You want to be the deputy director, but you don't want to uphold your values to reach that level. I think that's very important for me.
Thank you very much. So you want things to work very quickly, you forgo your own values. Thank you, Professor Mtongu. Let me go back to Teule. We got lost some point, but we'll come back. So my question is, reputation is built on values. What will you tell young leaders today, some of them are here, about upholding the values to build their own reputation? You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I started by saying that I'm bringing in a credibility for leaders of today. I was just about to say, building on what we talked about last time, saying reputation is not something that you have to have it now, and credibility is not something you don't have to have now. You have to have it now and for the future, but building it takes longer time than demolishing it. So young people have to understand that it takes time to build credibility. It takes time to build reputation. In our last discussion, we talked about reputation being that an image that you're carrying with you as in personal reputation together with organizational reputation. When you are going into the church, when you're going into the mosque, when you're going into the drinking places, you are carrying an image of yourself, you're carrying an image of your organization. You cannot just be thinking of yourself without thinking about the image that you're carrying. I want to also uphold the point that Florence said, many people want to be speaking, not doing what they're speaking. It's about walking the talk. In the life of audit, there's one principle that is very important. We say independence. So there we're saying an auditor not only need to be independent, but also need to be seen independent. So it's not about saying I'm independent. Are people seeing independence, in you? And it's very, very important to know. And one biggest point I've learned myself in the discussion today, we're saying leadership is not about the position we're holding. Leadership is not about the degrees that we're having. We have professors, we have doctors here. It's not about those. It's those other values that make you and such that people start trusting in you. And I like the point that, Professor made. I know it was maybe at the beginning or at the last, when he said, people cannot be forced to actually believe or trust you. I want to say, reiterate on that. It is about how you build yourself. It's about how you undertake yourself that people make trusting in you. In Japaigo, there's what we call partnership principles, which also I believe these are leadership principles. Things like trust, respecting. If you have a team that you're managing, you got to be able to listen to the people. You have to make sure you are building a culture of constructive leadership and make sure that you're building all these aspects in all the, leadership, whatever you have in your. The point that I want to make about agile, as in like being able to adapt easily and being very flexible. We have so many leaders who are very rigid and they only go with what they believe. It's not about what you believe, it's about what you all believe together as a team. So while you're building yourself, you have to make sure that you're going constructive, inclusively with your team that you're managing. In doing that, the point that Professor made, people will be making trust in you by not being forced to trust you, by
I think we are losing him again.
Did I get lost again?
Yeah, go on. Maybe in a minute, I will be cutting you short. In 1 minute to come. Please continue.
Did I get lost again?
Speak.
You are back now.
Speak.
You can continue.
He's lost
Did I get lost again?
Please speak.
No, we hear you.
So,
go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I mean, my internet is not very good, but I think I made myself clear. And
Yeah.
And in today's time, every organization actually needs those transformational leaders. Those leaders are not kind of like easy to be found. We want people who can actually spearhead the changes that can elevate profitability in the profit making. And for us who are in a non-profit industry, we're looking at value for money. Who are those leaders who can protect the value for money? Where are those leaders who can expand the market share? Who are those leaders? Where are they that can make changes? They can change the rule of the game. People who can actually, bring about doing business unusual practices. It's not about, the usual practices that you think will make changes in the industries. So as we talk to the young people, we have to encourage you to learn to those values that you'll uphold them to make sure that when you're doing things, people are seeing some changes in you as opposed to business as usual.
Thank you, Dr. Mteule. Thank you so much. This monthly webinar are aimed to give you the tools and the insights to be the better leader of today and the better of tomorrow. We have a problem. I suggested that let's do 90 minutes webinar. I know some people may have to leave, but let me say, for me, the discussion is very enriching and very educative. I wish to say, so if it happens that you have to leave, please feel free to do that. But I want to open up for a discussion because I think these discussions are the essence of why we aspire to create leaders who can do better tomorrow than we are doing today. I want to echo what Mteule says. He made a very powerful statement, and I am taking this myself. This is what he says. He says, credibility, reputation is an image that you are carrying for yourself and for the company that you are working for. So when you go to the market, you have that image that you are carrying. When you go to the mosque or church, you have that image that you are carrying. When you go to where you have the image that you are carrying. For me, this is very powerful. This is very powerful. And I hope for some question and answers, type your question in the chat box. We'll be very happy to get the speakers responding to your question. Our subject, remember, is value-based leadership, particularly in the digital age in 21st century. And this is important both in the profit-making institutions as well as not-for-profit institutions. Please raise up your hand and ask your questions, and our speakers will be glad to respond to your question or a comment. If you have a comment or you have a question, please raise up your hand and make your comment or ask your question. Any comments, any question from the audience? Seems there's no question. Seems there's no question. Right. So I do hope the session was educative. Let me go to my speakers again to finalize the session. Professor Mtongu, what will be your closing statement for young leaders of today and of tomorrow?
Thank you, moderator of the session. My take-home point is that value-based leadership is not an option. It is something that we must carry with us from the beginning to the end. And we don't have to apologize becoming value-based. We must walk the talk and take the goods home. And I was to give an example. Let me just give a short example. A short example. One time I met somebody from America who had lent my paper from the website of the university. And after meeting for a whole day, I was given $8,000 at night to go home, and I was told, go start a project and report back on women leadership. So I went. The following Monday, I deposited the money in the university account. Then on Wednesday, this lady comes to the finance manager of the university and requests for a receipt. Then she is told, you go to the person who brought the money, he has the receipt. So she comes to me and tells me, you have passed the test. And from that day, the Institute got $3 million every year for 7 years to train women on leadership. So it's not about you, it's about the value you carry. And I can tell you that value carried me through for 11 years with that supporter, with that donor.
Right, right.
Thank you.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. So I hope we are all learning from that. Themba, what would be your final remarks, for somebody who wants to uphold values?
Yeah, look, this was quite a good discussion, and thanks to fellow panelists. My last point really is, value leadership is not about taking easy decisions. I always want to fall back on someone like Nelson Mandela, whose life was really guided by a value, a specific value. And he never diverted from that value. It carried him into prison. It sustained him in 27 years of incarceration. It's the value that he wanted to deliver for this country. Even post that prison, when he became president, he still didn't divert. So, for young leaders, it is important that, and why Mandela, people want to criticize him today, more so in South Africa, want to criticize some of these decisions. But if you look at him from 1957 until when he died, he stuck to one issue, and it is important that young leaders put on the ground what values they want to base their leadership on and stick to it. Yes, there will be a new era of digitalization like we have, which changes one or two things, but it mustn't change the main character of your leadership. I wanted to just to say, look, value leadership is also about making those very difficult decisions. It's not about making convenient decisions today and comfortable decisions. Some of the values that people live by have made them to sacrifice so much in life, but the value remains, and they took it to the grave, some of them. So that will be my closing remarks, to say, remember that it won't be easy. Your values will be challenged. There will be headwinds against your values, but you need to stick to your values, because that will probably outlive you, and your legacy will be based on that.
I wish I had more time to ask you some more questions, but it looks like we don't have time. Let me go to Dr. Tem. What would be your final remark on value-based leadership?
Okay, I can see there's a hand. Should I just go ahead?
Go ahead, and then we'll take him after you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I really appreciate to be invited to this panel. I hope next time we'll see more of people like me, women, but it's good that we are here. But my message really is one has to decide what value he or she needs to conduct himself or herself, or to live with, whether you are acquiring a position of a titled leadership or leader by yourself, because everyone is a leader by being a self. There's a self-leadership element. And I think most important is how authentic are you? And is to build authenticism, but also ethical. And that will really define who you are. It's so surprising when somebody speaks something that he totally knows is lying or she's lying, but makes you to believe that she or she says the truth, to the extent that is even ready to be even audited and to be surprised, and then find to be surprised. But he or she knew she was lying. So I think that's how you separate your lip from your soul, your mind. These things work separately, differently, and will communicate one thing one day to be known. So I think it's always good to be authentic to yourself, you, and to the people you're communicating to. I agree, as Temba said, it's not easy sometimes to be two-factor. So sometimes you decide what to say, what not to say, and better deal with confidentiality issues the way they need to be dealt with, and sensitive issues the way it's supposed to be dealt with. It's not about just say because I'm supposed to say everything, or say in the manner that everybody knows everything, but their confidentiality. How do you handle confidentiality issues? How ethical are you? How do you deal with the sensitive matters, etc.? So I think for the young people who are upcoming, I think value-based leadership is what will keep you to the position you want to become as a leader. And you should know that with time, you'll be there. No need to rush too quickly, then you become unethical, and you impact in your integrity issues. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do better next time to have more like you. Mlangwa, I see you have a hand. Please go ahead and ask your question before I go to Mteule. Go ahead and ask your question, please. Somebody, Mlangwa. Please ask your question or type if you can't speak. He's still making his mind probably, and for the interest of time, I wish to continue. So, Temba and Temba and Tem, I don't know whether they are all Wachaga. They're telling us that it is not easy, but you have to choose. It's not always easy. You have to choose the values that you want and stick to them. Sometimes it's very hard and very difficult, but you still have to uphold them because it is your choice. It is your own image. And finally, Dr. Florence tells us, you don't have to hurry. You will finally get there. Don't jeopardize your own reputation because of 1 yard mile. Uphold your values, you will finally get there. The question isn't coming. Okay, so somebody says from here, nice session, but can I ask if the values can be grown due to the external motivation or it is inborn trait? So I think the question is, can the value be developed from the external motivation or they are inborn? Dr. Mteuli, would you like to respond to that?
Well, so we learn through different ways, external, inborn, and leaders. It is important that people understand some of these tips, some of these principles, and some of these values we learn. And you just have to be open enough to be agile, like I said in my discussion, to be able to catch up. There's a lot of changes in the industry. Dr. Florence talked about different decades. Maybe the leadership style we use to manage people in the fourth and from today. Utilize today, the morning and the evening already on the newspapers. Bujali said himself that he was reading somewhere where they're posting back things that were posted when somebody was regional commissioner was bound to go to the US. So I think it's more about being flexible enough, agile enough to be able to articulate issues in the industry. There's one point that I wanted to close with saying, I think somebody talked about this, Dr. Florence, maybe again, the people that we're managing today, they know a lot. And sometimes technically, they may be even better than us. So what makes you be a leader, and not them? So it is important to know that at some point, technical competence becomes an assumption, is assumed. So those other values, those other, principles that keeps you stand away from the rest is what makes you more important in become a value-based, leader than otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Dr. Florence, unfortunately, she has to leave because she has another commitment. I want to thank her very much for staying all this time. She had said she only had 1 hour, but I want to thank you very much for making time to share your insights and tools with us. I hope to see you some other time. Thank you so much. We'll be wrapping up the session in a few minutes. So, the world is changing. We can't manage the way we managed it 10, 20 years ago. So we're gonna change and adapt to the situation that we live in. So that's very important to say. When we talk about value-based leadership, it's about me, it's about you also. It's about me, but it's also about you. So it's basically about yourself. So what do you want people to know about you in terms of your own leadership? So this is very important. We had a hand up, and I think the hand got lost somewhere. If there's no another question, I'll be happy to close the session today.
Just a comment as we close.
Yes, please.
Yeah, somebody asked about whether we can develop value-based leadership. And I want to answer in the affirmative and say yes. And one of the ways of doing that is going through coaching and mentorship with experienced leaders who have values. But as we do that, we must also be careful not to be mentored in the wrong direction. The other way is looking at model leaders, and model leaders are people whom you admire in their leadership styles. Like what our brother Teba said, you can look at people like Nelson Mandela, who had the one principle: whether he becomes a one-term president, he didn't care. Only that he had to live to his principle. And I want to give you an example on that. Last week, I met two gentlemen who have been advisors to the president in this nation. And one of them, when he was being introduced, when I was being introduced to him, he said, "Don't introduce Daktari. I have done enough research about him. I know him. He doesn't need a recommendation letter." So I think for me, that was like a lifetime bomb. I never knew people research you and they know you more than you know yourself. Thank you.
So people know you more than what you know yourself. So therefore
Yes.
develop a value because they know more. They can search you from different angles. Thank you so much, Professor Mtongu, for sharing that live example. Are you happy if I close the session, or there's any burning question for today? Any burning question for today? Doesn't seem so. I want again to thank all the speakers today, Professor Mtongu, Temba Rengani, Florence Temu, and Mteule Nkomo for your time. I want to thank all the people who made it time to participate in this session of value-based leadership. The aim of the Institute is to provide the cutting-edge insights and tools for the 21st leadership. And I hope to see you in the next webinar in November. Please note that the webinar is recorded and they should be available online if you want to review the discussion. I want to thank all of you again who participated in this session, and look forward to see you end of November for the next webinar. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.